What am I doing? What am I looking at? What the heck is going on here? Okay. Excellent. My plan is working. Okay. Checking connection. Excellent. Right. Live. It is alive. It is alive. Oh man. Open the window. Letting the world in. Okay. Shall we have some music? I think we shall. Hi. Hi, Lisa. Lawrence! Amy. Cool. Yes! Pellegrino! So, welcome to the veritable edge of Western civilization. Let's try this. Is this going to work? Yes, there we go. Much better. All right. This is so exciting. So I have Instagram on my phone right here, and I have YouTube here on my iPad. And I think we'll probably go with some music. Music. Yes. So this is a piece that I've been working on the past couple of days. And let's go to the beginning and we'll hit it. It's really long, so you probably won't hear the whole thing. It's about an hour long. What I'm basically, I've said it before, I'll say it again for anybody who hasn't been paying any attention. What I'm basically working towards, it occurred to me the other day that the sort of music that I like to create is psychedelic, in the sense that it's designed to trigger trance states. And I feel like in terms of, what more would you want from music but music that's going to actually have an effect on you in a positive way, right? So I feel like that's kind of what I'm here to do. By all means necessary and relatively legal. So without further ado, there is the button. I created this on, I think, one of these, either the iPad or the iPhone, but I have it, I just put it on to my Apple laptop, and this laptop is relatively new to me. I got it last year, and I just downloaded the latest version of GarageBand, and there's this thing on here that shows you the score, literally. It shows you the notes on a regular music score, and I don't know how to read all that stuff, but it's really cool that I created all that. Maybe I am that little kid that's, sitting in his diapers, excited about his little poopage, Okay, so these little gel caps I'm about to take is this stuff. Oh, it's showing up backwards. Okay, it's called BioComplete 3. I ordered it online. My thinking behind it was, let me turn this down a little bit. My thinking behind it was, so after the first infusion, I had this experience of trying to be really mindful of my body and everything, and trying to figure out what are the side effects of that immunotherapy drug that I've been infusing with. And the side effects I identified were a little queasiness, fogginess, and fatigue. And I basically traced all of those back to possible impact on my stomach biome. So this supplement is a prebiotic, postbiotic, and probiotic all in one. It's supposed to take 4 a day. I'm taking 2 right now, so we'll see how that goes. And I have to say, I started taking it the day before yesterday, and I am feeling more of myself. So there's that, right? I'm kind of getting back my energy level. And I noticed yesterday that like just getting out of this chair for the first 2.5 weeks, like literally it was painful to stand up out of this chair or to get up out of the bed. And now there's like none of that is happening. So because one of the other side effects was thank you, Pellegrino. One of the other side effects was these arthritic symptoms. So I think that one of the keys to that is to continue to keep moving and to exercise. And so after around sunset, I'll take my little football out there and toss it over my shoulder as I'm running towards the ocean, and then go stand in the water for a while and do the same thing coming back here. So today is my last day in this place, and let me share some of what I've learned so far. But first, let's do a little homage, shall we? Because we can. Oh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Gratitudes. 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 I want to give thanks to the source of the universe for taking such good care of me and everyone that's contributed along the way for me to continue to still be here and to have such magnificent digs to recover in. And what's happening, one of the things I learned from being in this space this time is that the universe kind of tricked me into this because I originally got it to stay hyper-hygienic because I thought I was going to have a PICC line put into my arm, and I wanted to keep it clean. But literally at the last minute, like some kind of cosmic drama or whatever, the doctor came in and said it wasn't necessary. And at that moment, we also determined that it wasn't necessary for me to do chemo at all, and to just focus on this immunotherapy drug. Actually, it was determined like 2 days before I was supposed to have my first infusion. And so now I'm on this immunotherapy drug, at least for the next till June. June 30th is the last infusion. They're 3 weeks apart, and I'm a third of the way through, and I'm feeling like I should be able to handle this, barring the unforeseen. Each one of these infusions is 200 milligrams of this Keytruda drug, and so what I've been learning about this, the universe getting me into this place is it was suggested by a friend that I got it specifically for the first month of the treatment, but unfortunately it doesn't have a bathtub. If I had a bathtub 2 weeks ago, when those arthritic symptoms were so overpowering, it would have made it a whole lot easier. As it is, tomorrow I'm going to, when I pack up my stuff and head out, I'm going to the hot springs to soak for several days, and then I'm going up to Big Sur and Monterey Bay to continue teaching myself how to fly paragliders. But what I've learned in this room, aside from just it being so wonderful to spend this really quality time focused on my own well-being, which I think everybody should have a chance to do, or make a chance to do at any time. It's kind of it should be our default setting, right? So what we're doing all the time anyway. I realize this is my studio, and because what I do in these relatively 4 walls and mirror is just brainstorm and try to figure out ways to further my goal, which is to disseminate all the work that I've created. And one of the projects that I'm working on, that perhaps you've seen on Instagram and YouTube, is the daily product of the eighth book of Divine Metaphysics, me writing the eighth book of Divine Metaphysics. So if you wonder how that happens, I lay on this bed as soon as I wake up, and I compose 10 questions on Divine Metaphysics. And then I recite them, record myself reciting them, and then I take that audio clip and I put it into a video. I'll put it together, edit it into a video using original footage that I've shot, and then I post that. And when I'm recording myself, I also compose a short piece of music to go with it using GarageBand. And when once that's all together in a video, then I post it on TikTok and add a little piece of their music, the music that's available on TikTok, and then I post that on Instagram, and then, but that's only 59 seconds. The piece is usually over 2 minutes, so I post the whole thing. I'm posting the whole, 2 to 4 minute or 5. And today's piece was almost 5 minutes long, and more than half of that was just the music. Because I have to tell you, I really enjoy composing music, and there's going to be a whole lot more of that. It's one of those things where you realize I should be doing this more because I love it so much, and there's just so much amazing stuff that comes out. So I love. In case you hadn't guessed, I love the creative trance that we get into. And what I mean by that is where you're creating something and you are so into it that the world, the universe just kind of disappears, and all you're caring about is what you're trying to create and how you can make it better, and how you're, whittling it down to, its final product. And then next thing you know, time has passed. It doesn't even matter. It could be a day, it could be a couple of days, but because you're so in the zone. That's the creative trance that I'm interested in stimulating in everybody that I know. I know that everybody on earth is capable of it, and most people have been socialized from grade school to believe that they are not capable of creating. And nothing could be further from the truth, because we do it every friggin' day. And we every person goes into trance every friggin' day. We spend most of our day in trance. Even if you don't count, even if you discount the sleep that you do, the 8 hours of hopefully of sleep that you get, which is obviously trance. But if you think about the daydreaming that you do, and the television watching, and what you're doing when you're driving in your own little zone, right? And what you do when you're reading, you're online and you're reading, you're checking your feed and all this kind of stuff. That's all trance. And creative trance is taking that to another level, where you're inviting something new in the universe to happen through you. And to me, there's nothing more supreme than that. It's right up there with sex. There's no doubt about it. And except it's a little different, because you can actually share. You can share it with people, and hopefully they get it on an inner level. So. And you can show people how you did it. What was your inspiration? So, I'm very excited by the future of these things, and what what I produce, what's coming forth right now. I'm very excited about these prospects, and I'm excited to see what I create. So at the end of the 90 days, this project of the Eighth Book of Divine Metaphysics, daily writing. At the end of the 90 days, there'll be a physical book. There'll be a movie of all the video clips, and there'll be an audiobook. And oh yeah, I have to do a little pitch here. I think right now, I don't know, I haven't looked at it or anything like that, but if you know of anybody that likes what I'm putting out here, it'd be really helpful if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I used to do a live stream on YouTube. I did over 200 episodes, but they've since changed their nonsense, and you have to have 1,000 subscribers in order to be able to live stream on YouTube. So I have like 542 or 1. Anyway, if you like the work, please subscribe on YouTube to my YouTube channel so that I can. One of the benefits of subscribing on of me being able to live stream on YouTube is I get to do landscape photography, as opposed to portrait photography that they do on iPhones and all that kind of stuff. And okay, right. Okay, somebody just sent me a message. So, and that means that the footage I can use in my movies going forward, and reach more people through my YouTube, build my YouTube brand better, because I'd like to get it off of, or extend it from what's happening. I'm trying to recover from what happened with Facebook last year. If you haven't been aware, Facebook disabled my 13-year-old account last August without any explanation or warning or anything, and they didn't have any cause. They didn't have any. They gave no explanation, and there was, unless you have an active account, there's no way for you to do anything about it. And so all of the connections that I'd made, all the web pages, all the Facebook pages, all the Facebook groups, every message on Messenger, every post and comment and like and all of that just got wiped from the internet, and without anything I could do about it. So one of the downsides of that is that the 5,000 people that were my quote-unquote Facebook friends were left to think that I had either disbefriended them or worse, that I blocked them in some way. And some of those folks sent me messages asking why I blocked them, and I had to explain to them what had happened and ask them to let other people know. So and another downside of that whole thing that happened was that because all the drama of the cancer drama of the past year and connecting with all these folks that were cancer survivors and getting their stories and whatnot, all of that, all those connections were lost. And unfortunately, some of those folks I've heard from since thought that when I disappeared from the internet, when I disappeared from Facebook, that I had died. So, kind of a weird, dramatic thing, and so I'm kind of, trying to recover from that and be able to, build my brand, which I realize is what, kind of the focus now, because, I've painted all these paintings and I've published all these books and I've made all these movies and made all this music and everything, and the majority of the population of the world has no freaking clue that I did any of that stuff. And if I died tomorrow, most of it would end up in a dumpster. So, in the time that I have left on the planet, it behooves me to build my brand enough so that the work will live on beyond me. And so there'll be more shameless self-promotion like this in the future. Yeah. So that's about 26 minutes of goodness. What else did I want to do? Right. We ain't dead yet. Right on, Lisa. That's from that old Monty Python thing. I'm not dead yet. So let's take a moment of silence. So, you're catching me at a time when I'm building my empire of my creative extrusion into the grand puddle of distraction that the world is mired in, and and it's very exciting for me to share these moments. So I think we should do a little story time, right? So on Instagram, anybody that shiny free, anybody has, give me a word, any word, and I'll see what story that inspires. Now, wait for that book. Shine free. Well, shiny is works. It kind of looks like shiny to me. Lisa Jonas. Obstacles. Freedom. Okay. So, when I was in college, I would I get into first I was a what do you call it, a floor counselor, and then I was an assistant head of residence for 7 floors of a high-rise dorm at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst, and I got to kind of oversee. My senior year, I got to oversee all of the floor counselors in that dorm, and one of the things that happened at the end of the semester, when I knew I was going to become an RA, a residence assistant, I found out in the spring, and at the end of the semester, I was working on a crew. After everybody had left, I was working on a crew, moving furniture around and everything like that. And one of the people I was working with was a student head of residence of one of the high-rise dorms at UMass as well. And he told me this story about how, he was just talking, he was telling me about how his experiences taking acid and smoking pot and doing all this other stuff, and then he told me the story about this. There was this kid who was a genius, and somebody had slipped him a hit of acid, and he'd never taken acid before. He was a straight shooter, and he was in a different dorm, one of the different high rises, and people had known about this guy being doing a lot of drugs and stuff, and so they went and they got him, and they brought him to this kid, and he was able, because he'd had so much experience tripping, he was able to help guide this kid back to sanity, because he thought he was losing his mind. And when they determined that it was, it wasn't losing his mind, when he realized he wasn't losing his mind and that it was this drug, this person was able to literally and figuratively take him by the hand and bring him back into the light. And I was so impressed by that story, and I knew that, where I was going to school was one of the most, it was one of the top party schools, one of probably the top, definitely in the top 10 party schools in America at the time. And it's one of the main reasons why I went there. Recreational psychedelics was what people did there on the weekends. So I decided that summer that I was going to try, that I wanted to be experienced at it. And at the same time, ever since I was 4 years old, I've been looking forward to exploring my own consciousness. And, I saw meditation as a way of doing that, and I also saw, these psychedelic drugs as a way of doing it as well, mushrooms and LSD. So that summer, some LSD came to me, and I did the LSD, and it was a very mild trip. It's a piece of blotter acid, and it was just enough to pique my interest. And when I got back to school in the fall, I, it was readily available, and a group of us started to do it, not regularly, but a couple times a month on the weekend, through that whole winter and spring of my senior year. And it got to the point where I was kind of like a trip master, in the sense that, I kind of made sure that everybody that was tripping with us, whether it was mushrooms or acid, it was like herding cats, to make sure that everybody stayed in a good and healthy healthy mindset through the whole experience, And so one time, this is where we get to the obstacles part. The university had all of these, there was a way to go through the whole campus, or most of it, without ever going outside. And you have to really know how to do that. You'd have to really know where these doors are and everything. And so what a great thing to do with a whole group of people, tripping on a late Saturday night, And there was another place that we liked to go. It was the storm drain system. These storm drains were big enough for a person to walk through them, and but there were places in there, that they went on for quite a ways. Maybe a quarter to a half mile underground, and so we had a whole posse of folks, and we're like, let's go into this storm drain system. And everybody's like, yeah, let's do that, And so we go into the storm drain system, and you get to these places where you have to climb up. And some of the people were not that physically fit and whatnot. And there's where you're trying to climb up, there's actually water coming down, and we had to make sure that everybody, every time we came to one of these obstacles, we had to help one another and make sure everybody got to the next one. And it became like this whole thing where we were just like nurturing one another up, and through the darkness and everything like that. I mean, it's generally a harmless environment, but one of the things that I learned from that is just how much fun it is to help one another and make a project of overcoming our obstacles together. There we go. And find the doors. Right, find the doors. Oh, well, the door is always within, of course, right? In the storm drain, there were no doors. There's one way in and one way out. It's like a labyrinth, right? Which is, for most people, they think of a maze as a labyrinth, and a maze and a labyrinth are not the same things. A labyrinth has only one way in and one way out, and a maze is designed to confound you and confuse you and get you lost. Kind of like life, in that life is both a maze and a labyrinth. There is only one way in and one way out, and it is definitely designed to get you dazed and confused and lost. So there's that. Right. In 1996, I decided that I was going to do an experiment with my life. I wanted to see how clear I could get, how much clarity I could achieve in my life, and what I could accomplish with that amount of clarity. And so, in the fall of 1996, it was October 26th, I was sitting on the banks of the Mississippi River in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with a young woman, and she offered me a joint. And I took a hit off the joint, and as I was inhaling, I realized that this was going to be my last joint. This was the last time I was going to get high. And I was like, it was really amazing to me. I mean, it just came out of nowhere. It was like, this will be the last time you get high, you know? But it was true. I actually said to her that, I think this is the last time I'm going to get high. And that went on for 22 years. And whenever anybody would ask me, why what I was, if I smoked pot or whatever, I would say, no, I don't hold it against anybody else, but I'm doing something else. I don't smoke pot because I'm doing this experiment in clarity. I want to see how clear I can be. And clarity was more important to me than anything else, So in those 22 years, I was able to self-publish 29 books, paint all these 2,000 canvases, and create all this music, and make all these movies, 8 movies, something like that, about 9 or 10 albums. And it seemed to me like that pretty much proved the clarity experiment, whatever it was meant to do, I think it did. Right? So and then the cancer happened. And for a couple of years, I didn't know the cancer was happening. It turns out. But I was probably symptomatic for at least 2 to 3 years before the diagnosis, and I didn't recognize it as cancer. Wasn't first on my the uppermost on my list of possibilities. And about 4 months into being very symptomatic and not knowing that I was symptomatic, I followed my guidance to go on a shamanic journey, to set Christmas 2018 as a shamanic journey, the day that I began my shamanic journey with full awareness and lucidity. So on that day, I took half a gummy bear that a friend had given me, and I went out to the Venice breakwater. I took the gummy bear. It was at 9:30 in the morning, and I walked all the way to the Santa Monica, no, it's not Santa Monica, to the Marina del Rey marina and back. And I recorded all of my thoughts, because one of the things that happens for me when I smoke pot, always has, is I brainstorm like crazy. you know, and you know, I it's been obvious to me that the majority of what I brainstorm under the influence is garbage, is fertilizer, is not worth the time of day. But every once in a while, there is, you know, I do figure stuff out that is pretty functional. And, you know, the question is, would I have figured that out or come up with a solution or whatever it is without getting stoned or high or inducing a trance state through the use of any sort of exterior substances? Be that, we'll probably not know the answer to that question ever, but in the meantime, I've said it before. I said it last night when I did one of these. Once again, just going to take a moment here. Follow, subscribe to my YouTube channel, please, and get everybody that you know to do the same thing, because I need another 470, 60 subscribers in order to be able to live stream on YouTube. So, as I said last night, when you begin a shamanic journey, it doesn't end. And a week later, I did the same thing. I started in the morning, and I went out to the ocean and walked in the other direction, walked towards Santa Monica. And I smoked pot, and when I got back to my bus, I had an incredible experience. My Volkswagen bus was parked around the corner here on the horizon, and for 2 years pretty much, because it could barely make it across the street for street cleaning. But I went inside of there, and I took a sage stick, and I saged the bus so much that I couldn't. I'm sitting in the middle of the bus. There was so much smoke in there, sage smoke, that I couldn't see the front of I couldn't see the windshield. And I filmed it. And when I filmed it and I played back the film, you could see there are these creatures in the air that are flying around. No exaggeration. And I took that video and I put it together with an original composition and some of the footage that I shot that afternoon on the beach, and released it as a single video. And the music is on my first album, the Spoken Words album. And you can see these creatures that were breathing all the time, right? Flying around the room, flying around the space. And the reason you can see them is because of the smoke, right? The sage smoke. So what we take to be dust particles are, not all of them are particles. Some of them are actually like these little friggin' creatures. They remind me of like diatoms or plankton, you know? It's pretty crazy stuff. So fast forward a year from that, when I began the shamanic journey, and I started to. From then on, I was, every couple of months or so, I was smoking a little bit of pot here and there, and then I got the diagnosis in September of 2019, and for 4 months before I started the treatment, radiation and chemo treatment, I was smoking pot, and I read an article about how THC in the blood accelerates the growth of this cancer. And so I stopped smoking pot just before I started the treatment, and all the while I was in the treatment, I wasn't smoking pot until I was declared cancer-free. And then I was smoking pot, and I asked the universe, why am I smoking pot? And the universe showed me that it has the potential of triggering any proto-cancer cells that are lingering around to be stimulated and taken care of by the cisplatin and the radiation that's in me, me being platinum man and everything. So what ended up happening is January, cancer showed up again, and I stopped smoking pot, and I started the treatment, and about 2 weeks into it, the cancer started the tumor started to shrink, and I knew I had about a week and a half before the next infusion, and that this cancer was, had the potential of growing if I took any THC in. So I took some THC in, and it turns out that the cancer just kept shrinking. So we got that working for us. And when I was first diagnosed, I had always thought that if I was ever diagnosed with cancer, that I would do try the Rick Simpson oil solution, because of Tommy Chong of Cheech and Chong he had done it to get rid of cancer, and it had worked for him. And that protocol requires you to take in 1,000 milligrams a day. From what I understand, I could be wrong, but 1,000 milligrams a day. And so I tried it the first 2 weekends that I was after my diagnosis, and it was too much for me at the time. Plus, what I would really love to do is just do to juice cannabis without heating it up. If you juice it without heating up, it's not psychoactive at all. It's like wheatgrass, basically, and you get all the benefits. You get the THC, you get the CBD, you get the full spectrum, but it's not psychoactive at all. But in order to be able to juice it, man, you've got to be able to grow a lot of plants. And I live out of a Sprinter van, so and who's gonna gift me or sell me pot plants that we're just gonna juice? It's just not that's not happening. I would have to manifest some land or an apartment and fill it with pot plants that I could continuously juice, which is a possibility down the road, but it's not helping me today. So, and there's that. Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing that there's more new people on here. So this is kind of like a pledge drive. If you want to help a brother out, you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please, and get other people to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because I'm 400 and I don't know 468 people short of being able to live stream on YouTube. So let's fix that, people. Anyway, Carrie Dwin. So, I want to. I started to share something last night about this, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I feel it's an important message, so I'm going to say it again in here. When I had my spiritual acceleration, it was back in 1993-94. And up until then, I smoked pot like everybody else in my cohort. And, I did, acid and mushrooms and pot and maybe some hash, and that was it. But when I started the spiritual acceleration, it was December 16th. And I went into the desert, and I was parked in a place that in the Ansparego Desert, where there had been a rainbow gathering the year before. And there used to be a hot spring there. It wasn't really a hot spring, it was a hot well that C&H Sugar Company had. They were, back in the 40s, they were drilling for irrigation water, and they found this hot well. And it wasn't enough for them to do anything with, so they just left it there. And people came along, and they kind of developed it into a pool and whatnot. But by the time the gathering happened, or just after the gathering happened, the place had gotten really disrespected. And so the local health department had gone in and blown up the source to make it impossible for anybody to use it as a hot spring or hot well or whatever. But the place out there, if you go to Salton City and take the S-22 towards Borrego Springs, and about, maybe 2 miles up that road towards Borrego Springs, there is now the Ocotillo? Something like that. State off-road vehicle park. And it's pretty much all the desert that you can see to the south. And that's that space. But it's kind of weird now, because before it was just the desert and you could just go out and appreciate the desert. Now you've got all these friggin', people on motorized vehicles whizzing by, and the desert is just getting degraded, essentially. But I went out there. In fact, that's where I went just before I started this round of dealing with the health system again on the cancer. I knew that there was something wrong, and I knew that I had to start the ball rolling, and start going to the doctor and starting the tests and whatnot and all that before we could get to any sort of treatment. So I kind of went out there for a week to with my paraglider, and I jumped off. Found some places out there I could jump off, and contemplated what my next move was with regards to my health. And I went to the exact spot that I was and parked and camped for 3 days that I was when I had my spiritual acceleration back in 1993 and 94. At that time, I stayed there for a month, starting around December 16th, and I left the desert around the 15th of January. And after within the space of 3 to 5 days, I started to experience this what felt like an acceleration. I literally felt my spirit accelerating, like somebody had just put, like me, I had put the pedal to the metal, and that sense of being, whoa, that's exactly what it felt like, except there was nothing moving except what's in me, It was easily one of the most amazing and incredible moments and periods of my life. So for those 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of that, I didn't, do any drugs or anything, and then on New Year's Eve, somebody came by and offered me a hit of acid, and I was like, no thanks. And then there was this thing and said, no, you should probably take that. I was like, what? Really? Why? It's like, just trust me on this one. So I took the acid, and I tripped that evening, New Year's Eve. So that would have been New Year's Eve 1994. And I couldn't wait for it to be over so that I could get back to being as high as I was from just naturally. And the next day, these friends of mine, really, really good friends of mine, came into the desert from the road, and they had this marijuana that they wanted to share with me, and I was like, I'm good, man. And then this thing said, no, you should do that, and I was like, really? So we smoked some pot, and I went out into the desert, and I sat down and I had a conversation with the universe. I was like, okay, universe, why did you have me do the acid and smoke the pot? And the universe said that so that you could tell the difference, so that you could articulate for anybody that was wondering, what are the differences and similarities between this natural high that you're experiencing and what you experience when you're either, high on marijuana or you're tripping on acid or mushrooms. And I was like, well, that makes sense, And I'll tell you the difference between the two, being naturally high and doing substances. When you're doing a substance, you've got to metabolize that substance one way or the other. And plus, you're kind of being guided by the substance. You're limited by the substance, whereas opposed to like with marijuana, you have this challenge to your short-term memory. Whereas when you're not high, obviously you have no limit to your short-term memory other than what your problem is with your short-term memory, right? And you can turn on a dime, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. You have all your faculties and everything. So if you're in a place of clarity, if you're in a place of divine communion, you recognize that there's no place to go. There's nothing to do. You're where you want to be, doing what you want to be doing, which is being in communion with divinity. Right? And what else is there? When you're tripping or you're smoking pot, you have glimpses of that similar thing, but you're limited by your body's ability to metabolize that substance. And each one of those substances has a downside, right? One is that they're a friggin' substance that's not inside of you. But what they all have in common is that they trigger what's already inside of you, right? So, but the downside of that is that each one of them has a debilitating side. That gets in the way of fully realizing the clarity that you can have. Well, I'm not saying that you can't have clarity on those things. I'm just saying that there is a level of clarity and a level of communion and a level of euphoria that is just supreme. It doesn't get any better. Can't get any better. How could it get any better? Because it is euphoria. It is communion. It is everything that you would ever want it to be, right? That said, there is a lot of fun to be had with recreational drug use. When I first had my the diagnosis, kind of the driving, my drive at that point was I recognized that I was being called to by the universe to a deeper place, to have a conversation about what am I doing, where am I going, what do I need to do for the rest of my life, however long that was. And in the first 2 months, I didn't know, for the first 2 months of the diagnosis, I didn't know how long I had to live. So I just wanted to get as much as, was there something else I was supposed to get, or, I wanted to understand as soon as possible if there was anything I had left out, or, right? Was there some answer that I didn't ask the question for, and I needed to ask that question, otherwise I wasn't going to get the, you know what I mean, all that kind of stuff. And so I set on a course to accelerate my, coming to to answer that invitation, to go as deep as I possibly could, to go to the center, and have as deep a conversation as I possibly could with the source of all that is. And it seems like that's what most people would think that they would do, right? If you found out that you had a life-threatening disease and you didn't know how long you had to live, right? You'd think that, all right, universe, whatever it is, give it to me. Pellegrino. Need another one. Yay. So, when I was going through the spiritual acceleration, one of the things that I was given to understand is this thing about living beyond reproach. One of my main goals in life has been to be a person of integrity. And I have, always wanted to be considered a person of integrity. And that's basically what it is to live above reproach. One of the essences of that, is to live with nothing to hide. And so if you feel like there's something you're hiding, to why are you hiding it? Look at what is it that you're trying to accomplish by hiding that thing? And what is it that you're trying not to see by hiding? Because you're basically hiding from that thing, right? And the reason I'm talking about all this stuff is I'm trying to understand myself, and to I realize that when in those 22 years of not smoking pot, there was I had a certain amount of my identity attached to being that person that didn't smoke pot, and it got in the way. One of the core truths of the universe is that no one is above another. Is that we all come from the source, and that the universe, the source of the universe, loves each of us infinitely, equally. And it loves the bejeebers out of every one of us infinitely, right? And so anytime that we try to present ourselves as being better than or more than another person, we are full of shit. That's right, we are full of fertilizer. And the universe uses that fertilizer to its own ends, as usual. You know, it doesn't waste fertilizer. So I had been hiding from myself for most of my life feelings of inferiority, feelings of bruised self-image, and I invested a lot of my mental capital into continuing to see myself as a good person, because I doubted my goodness. You know, I was told by the culture that I grew up in that I was less than everybody else because of the color of my skin, and I don't know that it was completely that, but there was, I sure seemed to get attacked a lot when I was a kid in my neighborhood, and attempted to be put down by the kids around me, and it had an impact. Years ago, about 25 years ago, I had the care of a beautiful dog. This dog was a Samoyed Husky Wolf named Gemini, and he was all white with blue eyes, and he was a puppy, really, but he looked like he was full grown, but he was only, when I first met him, I knew him for about a year, and when I met him, he was a year old, less than a year old, and up until he was 2. And he was a big dog, Samoyed Husky Wolf. And one of the most beautiful creatures that I've ever been in the company of. And he and I lived in Key West together for about 9 months. And we camped on this island off of Key West called Christmas Tree Island, and canoed across every day to the Sunset Festival, where I did readings of this deck of cards I was designing, that provided me and the dog with enough food to continue to live in the Keys. And how we ended up there is the car broke down, so I had to kind of get it together for us. And I was always amazed. I held this dog in the highest esteem. I saw his potential as just one of the most amazing creatures ever born. And yet, other dogs, especially alpha dogs, or would-be alpha dogs, would challenge him. They'd see him and they would go right up to him and they would try to trounce him as much as they possibly could right away. And it always tripped me out. Like, why wouldn't they just like appreciate the fact that he was destined to be a mega alpha dog? You know what I mean? And it turns out that what I've been able to reason out is the reason why they were challenging him was because he was destined to be a mega, alpha dog. Thing is, it really hurt his feelings every time they attacked him. Instead of just like a puppy, just let's play together. He would go up to them wanting to play, and they would just attack, try to trash him. And I saw myself in this, in witnessing this. That these other dogs would see him as a threat to their own self-image, and rather than deal with their issues with their shaky self-image, they would attack my friend. And obviously you can see the parallels. It really helped me to see, he helped me to understand what had been going on, because I was that same person. I was that, when I got attacked as a kid, I didn't understand that the reason they were attacking me was because they felt threatened by me, because I just wanted to play. Fast forward to 60 years later, and not much has changed. Except I've been able to keep my distance from those that might attack me better, and bringing it back to this whole concept of living above reproach and doing my best to be a person of integrity, and not having anything to hide. And confronting whatever it is that I have to be most honest with myself about. One thing I will tell you is I really enjoy smoking pot. Now, I'm not saying that this is actually marijuana or cannabis, but whatever it is, I am smoking it. Now, I'm not promoting this in any way, or I'm not suggesting that anybody else should do this in the entire world. But the reason why I'm smoking this smoking deviceage with the requisite amount of smokables inside is so I won't have anything to hide, and that I can live above reproach and not pretend like I'm a person that doesn't smoke pot anymore. It's kind of like telling on yourself. If you make a mistake or you do something that you're not proud of, it's better to admit that you made a mistake or you did something that you're not proud of than pretend that you didn't do it. You think? Amen. So I want to give thanks to everyone that has been holding me in their thoughts and prayers. I know that term these days, especially after these shootings, has a bad taste in most people's mouths. But there have been times when I have experienced, when I've been fetal, and in my first go round with the chemo and radiation, there was a moment when I was literally fetal in bed, and I reached over and I picked up my phone, and I'm like, if you can imagine, I'm like this, and I pick up the phone and I can't sit up for it or anything. I'm just all snuggled up with it, and I clicked on my messages and everything, and my social media feeds and all this kind of stuff, and all the messages that people have been leaving, because I hadn't checked it in, I don't know, I have no idea how long, but at least a week or two. There were always people that had left these messages about how they felt about me and what I was going through. And I read one and it hit me. I read another one and I'm just crying tears as I'm reading these, because I felt them. I felt people, what they were writing. I felt their emotion. I felt the fact that they took the time to express their concern. To say it was nourishing would be an understatement. It nourished my spirit in a way that only it could, only it can. And I will tell. I have to tell you this. I promised myself to do this. So I'm really glad that I just remembered. Okay, and this has happened several times over the years. I love going into the wilderness. I love going into solitude in the wilderness. And I've spent, I don't know how much time out there, all over the world. And I get to a place where it's just me and the universe. And then all of you, like everybody in the world, I start feeling and thinking about them, and then individual people, and I can see their whole lives and what they mean to me and their connection to me. I can see their whole lives. And whether it's a person that I love, a person that I like, or a person that I dislike, I can see them all, and they'll come to me. And only specific people will come to me, their spirit. will come to me. And each one of them is there to teach me something. And I'm, with the biggest spoon I can grab, or construct. I'm just scooping this information in. And while this is happening, I'm feeling so blessed and so nourished and so loved by the universe and by everything around me that I can channel it into that person's spirit. And that feels magnificent. That feels magnificent. That feels magnificent. And it's almost worth just going out there just for that. To be able to get into that place where I can transmit this love, this peace that I feel in that place with everybody. And then I realized I can do that. I don't have to be in the wilderness. I can be doing that all the time. And so that's what I do. That's how I live. That's how I go about my day, is I feel this connection with everybody in the world. All 7.83 billion of us. And there are specific ones that I feel very connected to, right? And they come to me on a daily basis in some way, shape, or form. And I do my best to remember to push it out, to push beams of light. I was making love with a woman a couple of weeks ago. And it was so wonderful. I had this idea that with every thrust that we came together, for me to picture this magnificent beam of light that is coming from the source of all love is going through me and into that person. And so every time we thrusted together, it became like this huge throbbing, incredible light explosion. It was so fucking amazing, literally. I thought I'd share. Oh my goodness. Mary Margaret, you said to me a couple weeks ago that when it was time to start smoking the pot again, that you would love to be there. So I noticed that there are these images that come to me of people and places, some of which I know and are familiar with, and some of which I don't. And I trust that I'm being shown these places and people for a reason. And again, I go into gratitude and recognize that they are light and I can share light into their light. And so right now, as I'm sitting here, I'm doing my best to connect with you and being this beam of light that is infinite love, the source of infinite love. My goal is to radiate it through this medium to you. That's it. I wanted to share with you this part of the shamanic journey that I'm on. I realize that this infusion, this drug that I'm taking through the infusion, is a blessing. From the Most High, that we live in a time when humanity has such an understanding of what makes up the universe that it can construct a substance, an elixir, and infuse it into my body. And it can have a response that makes a tumor go away. That is just, you know what I'm saying? But the whole idea of the person on the shamanic journey getting the elixir, I mean, that's part of the archetype of the story of the hero, right? The hero goes into the underworld, into the metaphysical realms, and seeking the elixir, right? Or the source. Seeking the source that they know intuitively is their source. And eventually they go there and they find there and they are there. And they never left home. They just remember the journey. Yay! Did it make it? Is it making it? Is the thank you beaming love back at you? Love from Mary Margaret. That, is it making it through? Is there love coming through? This is me beaming love at you, Lisa Jonas. Excellent. Excellent. My plan. She is working. She is working my plan. Yes. Yes. So, do you like the piece of music? Are you liking the music? Is anybody liking this music? I can turn it up a little bit. Isn't it trippy? It's hard not to journey with this piece of music. It's probably it's probably like close to 3 hours of music. This is 3 tracks, 3 completely different instruments that I played without listening to the other 2 tracks. So independently, and each track is a half an hour. It's a little over half an hour. Wow. And this is just the first 2. It's called Galactic Starfield and Aquaculture, are those instruments. And I love my work. I love my work. I'm so inspired by it. I listen to it and it just makes me trip. You know? Like I think this is the sort of music that you would just have on in the house playing in the background, and it's gonna definitely inspire you to explore new options in your life. It's a window into the new. Yeah. Okay. So story time. All right. Dave Pilla. Wow. Lisa says, I'm sitting in front of a fire, smoking a bowl, listening to you, and watching it snow right now. She's in Colorado. Dave Pilla. Okay. Dave Pilla and I grew up about 100 yards apart from one another. And my friend Harold. The three of us formed a triangle. Our houses were about 100 yards apart. Harold's is probably about 150 to Dave's. But we all grew up in East Falmouth, Massachusetts. Terrence Ave, the end of Terrence Ave. Well, what was the end of Terrence Ave? There were only two houses past his, and then it was woods. Now you can just keep going. It's all houses and houses and houses for quite a ways, miles. And those woods I used to bushwhack with my collie Ginger. And Ginger would always bark at me when we're running through the woods. She'd just bark at my legs, bark at me. I didn't know if she was barking because she was upset and wanted me to stop, or she was barking because she was so digging it. I really didn't know, but she kept doing it, and she kept coming when I said, let's go. She would, I'd ask if she wanted to come, and she'd go, and she would just keep barking at me the whole time. Maybe it wasn't at me, but she was barking. Dave Pilla. Was the captain of the football team, baseball team, and basketball team. And that's no small feat. And one of the smartest kids in the class. And that football team, Harold and I were and Dave were the starting backfield. And we, the next year, we went undefeated. We were starting backfield as juniors. And I talked to Harold the other day, by the way, in case you're wondering. Harold has been living about 2 miles that way for the past, I don't know, 10 years or so, maybe 6 years, 8 years, somewhere in there. And Harold, yeah, I mean, of all the places, you know, we grew up so close. Harold and I, we play the same position in football. We're in the same race in track. We went, we were recruited by Amherst College to play football together. Harold ended up going, I went to UMass because I wanted to party. I didn't want to have to, Amherst looked like it was going to be a lot of work, and I definitely was ready to party. I mean, I made a lot of work out of UMass, but I didn't want to work that hard. Harold went to Amherst College, and so their two were a mile apart, and we would a party, you know, whenever there was a good party, because he was part of this fraternity right on the corner in Amherst, where Route 16 and Route 9 cross. There is this fraternity house that is as old as the town, and Harold was a member of that fraternity, and they were always having good parties. And so whenever there was a party, Harold would call me up, tell me there was a party. I'd come over, and we would have a blast. Our formative years. We were always, until after college, we were always rivals. Harold, my family was the first quote unquote black family that moved, back then it was colored family, that moved into the neighborhood. And a few years later, Harold's family moved in, just up the street. And his whole family, he had his, every kid had that paper route, the paper route. They had the daily Cape Cod Times paper route. And every kid in that family had that paper route, and they just passed it down. And Harold had it. And I was his when he couldn't do it, I would step in and be the paper boy, right? And we did the same, so we had the same paper route. Harold had the same paper route. We were in the same Cub Scout den and Boy Scout troop. Harold played the clarinet though, so he was in the band. I didn't do any music, and I was in musical theater, but I didn't play any instruments. I tried the drums in 6th grade. That was, nope. It was 4th grade. I wanted to be Mickey Dolenz of the Monkees. He was my hero. There was a similarity. I saw myself in him, and I wanted to be a good drummer. Probably not a very good drummer. Just saying. Oh boy. Well, you see where this is going. Dave Pilla. This is my mnemonic device to remember, given that my short-term memory is now challenged, to finish the story. Dave Pilla. So Dave Pilla, when we were freshmen, just before we started the season, he and I were at the football field and we were throwing the ball. And Dave broke my finger. But I didn't know it was broken, it just was out of whack for a while, right? But for the next 4 years, whenever I played, I would have to tape these two fingers together, you know, because it's kind of dangerous to have it hanging out there like that, before every game. in practice. Just before the senior year, the year that we ended up going undefeated, Dave and I were at the field before the season's playing catch, and Dave broke my other finger. Dave Villa. So, years go by. Oh yeah, nobody, he didn't know, I didn't know it was broken, you know, what are you gonna do? Years go by, it was at one of the reunions, I don't know, 30th high school reunion, something like that, 35, who knows, it was a while ago. I had just happened to, you know, there's a group of us from the football teams standing around in a circle and everything like that. I brought up the story about these two fingers, right? About these two fingers. And everybody in the circle put out a hand or two. I mean, Dave Pilla, every one of them had a broken finger because they were trying to catch one of David's balls. He was an incredible quarterback. He was very, if you remember Jim Plunkett, very similar, very, very similar. At least in my mind and heart. I love Jim Plunkett. He was a Heisman Trophy winner, played for the Patriots, but they were not a very good team at the time, and they used him poorly, and they didn't protect him very well, so he got very beat up and wasn't really able to fulfill his potential at New England at the time. Dave Pilla, a couple of years ago, he went to the University of New Hampshire and didn't play football. In fact, I don't know that he played any sports in college. Apparently he'd done all the sports things because his father wanted him to, and knew that he could be good and told him that he should do it. So he did it following his father's motivation. After college, Dave went to, not far away, he became an instructor at Proctor Academy in New Hampshire, I think. Near Andover, New Hampshire. And right near Dartmouth College. And coincidentally, that campus is really close to where our football team, our freshman year, went to football camp. And sophomore year. And because one time when I went to visit him there, we went we just went out for a run, and we ran through a road that they had put through the camp, that it was, now it was just a neighborhood. It was very strange to go back to a place that had such an iconic, notorious, we did 3 practices a day for like 10 days at this camp, and a lot happened. I was sexually assaulted, and it was I was hazed. It was a teen hazing thing. and it was very challenging. Um, my Me Too moment, or one of them anyway. Dave Pilla. A couple of years ago, he committed suicide after a career of, I don't know, what, this was like 3 years ago, so I'm 63, 40 years, let's say it was 40 years. 40 years as an instructor, a fixture at Proctor Academy. He taught I'm not sure what he taught there, but he had responsibility for the mountain that they lived on, that the campus was on, and this whole concern of tapping all the trees and getting the maple syrup and all that kind of stuff. And so he taught the kids how to make maple syrup, and they, the maple syrup that they had for breakfast came from the trees on the mountain that he made sure that everybody learned everything about the forest. So I guess he taught forestry there or something. And he, in the summer times, he did Outward Bound. He was an Outward Bound instructor in Maine. So you can imagine the impact on the children of the 1% that David had generations of people. And when I found out that he was dead, I tried to find out what was going on and what happened, what was, and in the course of that inquiry, I spoke with the dean of the school and several other people, but I did all this research online, and I saw they'd already set up a page announcing what had happened with David, and the response was just incredible. It was incredible. It was just a testament to who David was, in this life. The people from all over the world that were just all about expressing their condolences and expressing their feelings, emotions, devastation of hearing what had happened with David. It's just like. So when I found out, I was set up on the boardwalk, and right across from me there was a store that sells like skateboards and surf stuff. And so I went in there and I bought a football. Dave Pilla. Well, it looks like it's time to go out to the water if I'm going to make it before the sun sets. So Richie and we will share hair. Richie Andrews hair. Okay. Thanks, Richie Andrews hair. Please, anybody who's watching, enjoying, or whatever, paying attention to this at any point along the way, what do you call it? Subscribe, please, to my YouTube channel so that I can live stream directly from YouTube now, like I used to, because they changed their thing. But I need 468 more subscribers to my YouTube channel, so I can. So let's make that happen, please. I'm going to be going to the hot springs, Miracle Hot Springs, tomorrow. And I'll be moving out of here tomorrow and going up to the hot springs, and after that, whenever that is, however long, I'm heading over to the coast to paraglide off of something high. Going to get high off of something high. Yeah. Lake Court, Sand City and Lake Court, man. And I think the road, Nacimiento Road, is open into Big Sur. And I think I'm going to come over from the Hunter Liggett side, because where the Nacimiento Road hits the crest, Pacific Crest Road. Just south of that is Wild Cattle, and Wild Cattle is a paragliding launch site that you're supposed to be able to land on top. I hope to let you know how that goes. There might be reception, we'll see. There was reception on the mountaintop that I did on Christmas. So, and maybe, if I'm lucky, I'll be able to do that whole mountain this time. But then over the Lake Court for some, ridge flying, the dunes of Monterey Bay. Ridge flying, the dunes of Monterey Bay, baby. You know what I'm saying? That's what I get to do. This is my life. You know what I'm saying? 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 And if you want to get an idea of what that's like, go to my YouTube channel and hit Learning to Fly number 15. That's what I'm talking about. Learn to Fly number 15. Learn to Fly series number 15. That flight, that was my last flight at Lake Court. As soon as I pulled it up, and you'll see, as soon as I pulled it up and turned, I didn't even step forward. I didn't even take a step forward. I was plucked straight up into the sky. Straight up into the sky, and I was there. I mean, it was just so fucking amazing. You know what I'm saying? It's just so fucking amazing. It doesn't get any more amazing than that. You know what I mean? Where you get plucked off the earth and you know what to do. You know how to turn this to your advantage. You know what I'm saying? Wow. That's just... All right. We're gonna go. I'm gonna put something warmer. Some warmerage. Oh yeah. Yeah, yes. That's what I'm talking about. Alrighty then. And you, Dave Pilla. It's been a lot of fun. You know, I think I can take you with me. I think I will do that. Yeah. But we're going to have to turn you off. All right, how do we do that? How do we turn this off? There, stop. Stopping. Stop. You can either keep the event and resume it later, or finish the event and archive it on YouTube.